welcome to this week's edition of Creative Corner. This week I'm going to focus on lots of ideas that will help spark up your room by just revamping some of the lamps that you have. I don't know if you've noticed, lamps are really expensive, lamp shades are really expensive, but they can also be prettier. Now, I always say to myself, why can't you buy a lampshade exactly the way you want it? Well, you can, you just have to buy it in elements. In other words, buy all the extra little things you want to do to it after. Here's a lampshade that's really, really nice. It's got a scalloped bottom. It's got a nice trim at the top and the bottom, but we're just going to put a nicer trim on the bottom. I've got a fringe, it's just a shade darker burgundy that we're going to attach to the bottom. And I'm going to glue this around the base. I've already got some. Now when you buy trim, there's always a stitch at the bottom of the fringe. And whenever you buy it, it's a stitch that holds it together. So when you have the whole or all the fringe glued on the lamp, you just pull on the string. Well, with a glue gun, I'm just going to now glue it right on top of the fringe. Now there's a piece of trim underneath there that we want to make sure we cover up. So just add a little bit of glue. This is something that you really want to work slowly on. Don't do more than a couple of inches at a time. And be careful not to get the glue on the fringe. So then your fringe won't hang very nice. Some tapes that are already on purchased lampshades, you might be able to remove. This one was secured really, really well. I didn't even try to remove it. What I am doing is just trying to get the glue just on the tape itself. Also trying to place the trim on a curve so that our finished fringe will hang in the scallop the same way that the edge of the lamp is. There's lots of different trims you can get now. Tricolor trims, fringes, thick cords with piping attached to them. Any of the lampshades that you have today, whether they be plain, pleated, shiny, not shiny, might look really nice to have a trim on the bottom. So just purchase some trims and it'll triple the look of the lamp if you have a nice shade. The only thing I say is if you have a light lampshade, well, don't put a really dark trim on it. A little bit too harsh. And if you have a dark shade, don't put a really light lampshade or a trim on it. Always do it just a tone darker. Something that would accent it really nicely. When you get to the end of a fringe and you want to join them together, look ahead to the fringe and go to the next scallop and cut between the fringe. So you end off with one. Now I'm going to take the fringe, place it like this, fold one area back. Now I'm just looking at the top of the fringe, what's between these two lines, and fold it back one. Now if you see the scallop, it's just one folded right on top of the other. See that? One's folded right on top of the other. Take it now and overlap it. It should overlap just a small amount. Make sure you put lots of glue where you started because you don't want that to fray away. And overlap and get it as flat as you can. Any kind of glue would work. A glue gun, you just have to work a little faster. And there we go. Down to the string for taking the string off. There's one portion of the string, usually at the beginning here. If you pull on the string, the whole thing will come off. Here we go. Hold on to it, pull off the string, and we'll have free-flowing fringe. It's only sewn on very lightly. You don't need to pull it hard. And then all of your fringe is free. And then there's what a fringe lampshade would be like. I think it dresses up the lampshade quite a bit, gives it a lot more Victorian look, that's for sure. Now we need to just add the straight one to the top. And that's the matching fringe, which is plain. It just looks like what's on the bottom. See that? Some of them you might want to iron first before you put it on something like this. Just going to remove the piece of tape that I had on there for preventing it from fraying away. Start in the same spot. A little bit of glue. Now this is just straight, so you can work a little bit longer at a time. Make sure your scallop is pointing upwards. All of them. You don't glue any of them down. And this is a lot faster to do. Well, this is just one thing you can do to spark up a lamp or a lamp shade by adding trims. Trim doesn't have to be just on the lamp shade. It can be on the lamp base as well. Let's say you had a solid color lamp base. You can take a piece of trim and put around maybe the gold at the bottom if that's starting to discolor a little bit. It all depends what kind of problem you have. For example, if you have a lamp base that's got a chip in it, maybe it's a ceramic one with a chip, well, cover it up with a piece of fabric. And again, the same thing, you just overlap it, put a little bit of glue where you started, prevent that from fraying, and overlap it underneath just a little bit. Put glue on there, and that's all you need. So again, you can take a little bit of trim, like this, and put on your lamp base as well. We'll just put this aside for now. And let's say you have a base like this. Trims can go around the top of the base, like this. It can go around the bottom. Anywhere at all to help you dress up your lamp. Now this one is not really a ceramic, but it's like a glass one. Not the best lamp in the house, but it looks kind of ratty now. What I'm going to do is take out the bulb, just because it's easier to do it without anything in the way. See if anything needs to be tightened up. Now I'm going to use an elastic band and a piece of fabric and cover this completely with fabric. The thing is, when you're doing a lamp like this and you want to redo it with fabric, choose a fabric that's snazzy. We're going to leave the lampshade plain. This is a great lamp to put in something like, a simple hallway, anywhere at all. But you just need a square of fabric or a circle that is going to be just the height of this. Okay? And I'm just going to cut out a square, roughly the size that we need. I really like this fabric. It's very springy. If you're redoing something and you need just a little lift, this is the kind of fabric that you can make your own trim by ironing a simple trim to do around the edge of the lampshade. I'll show you that in a second. But this I'm going to now, just to make it easier, round off the points. So I have, well, not really a square and not really a circle. You might need to iron the fabric. Place this in the center. I'm going to make a tiny hole just to get the cord through. Just happens to be a cord that comes out off center. Fortunately, you have to make a hole big enough to fit the plug through, or you can take your lamp apart. But I usually just make a hole big enough for the cord, and then if you need to, put a little stitch in the hole just to get it back into shape. Now I've got an elastic band. I'm going to twist it around 3 times so it gets nice and snug. Put it around the base right here. And now tuck the fabric into the elastic band. And take it up on this side. I usually do it from side to side first. I find it easiest to do it that way so that you at least get the fabric on straight. It takes a little bit of fussing. The thing is to get all the fabric tucked into the elastic band first. First I do both sides. Tuck it in. And then Move the fabric around if you need to. Another way, if you want to change the shape, is you can add some stuffing into the base of this. And that would change the shape if you happen to have something that's, a little too vertical, maybe even a little too round, maybe you want it rounder. Maybe you have a funny shaped lamp base and you want to change it. But it's very easy to do. You get a nice tight piece of fabric around the base just like that. You can be creative and try to intentionally get some pleats in there. But just make sure it's all tucked in nice and snug. And it's all, well, as similar as possible from side to side. There we go. When you put your bulb on, and a plain white lampshade on a plain white lamp doesn't look so boring. Doesn't that look a lot better? It covers up a base of gold that happened to have discolored. What I would do with this lamp, however, is take a trim of the fabric, iron it. Let me show you quickly how you would do that. Take a 1-inch piece of fabric. Well, let's just assume it's straight. Iron it is all you have to do. Iron it down on either side until you have about 1/4 of an inch or 1/2 inch, and then glue that along the base of the lampshade and along the top, and that is a completely new, fun spring summer lamp. Well, maybe you have a lamp like this that you want to try, or maybe in the next half we'll give you a lot more new ideas on what you can do with some of the lamps you have around your house. Why buy new lamps? Redo the ones you have. Stay tuned right after this. Hi, welcome back, and we're changing lampshades today and lamp bases. Well, I'm going to change this one. It's a very, fancy lamp. Glass or crystal is not as popular as it used to be, or maybe you're just simply changing the room and you don't want lampshades that are that fancy anymore. But yet, all this rest of your stuff is still a little bit fancy. Well, we're just going to add some satin to the base, doing the same thing with the elastic band again. So this time let's take off the lamp shade. This, however, I just brought in to remind you that this is a pet peeve of mine. Somebody who has plastic on their lampshades. The only time I excuse this kind of silly behavior is if you have someone in your house who is a smoker and you have a light lampshade like this. Well, that's excusable. So then what you do is you kick the smoker out of the house and you can take the plastic off the lampshades. But the base, for example, with this, we are going to add 2 elastic bands this time. Let's put them on separately. Fold them in half. Stretch them right over the top. The first one, I'm going to leave a little bit higher. And the second one, I'm going to drop it down a little bit lower. This piece of satin is long and rectangular. We're going to make sure it gets up to here first. The cord, I'm going to leave an opening in the back just by folding in the fabric about 1 inch and pulling it upwards. Your lampshade will always have a fabric towards the back so it can have an opening. I'm going to take all the fabric up and put inside the first elastic band. Okay, just pull everything up from the first one. Another idea with fabric, or not fabric, or lamp bases, is spray paint. And we're going to talk in a moment about spray painting lamp bases. Just about anything can be spray painted. Glass can even be spray painted. Now we've got all the fabric, first of all, up and inside the first elastic. At the back where the opening of the fabric is, tuck it under, little fold, and cross it over. And pull it just a little bit more towards the front. And you might want to place a couple of stitches there just to hold it in place. For now, to be quick, I'll put a little piece of tape on there just to hold it into place. stitch or two might help. Now this is satin back crepe fabric. Any fabric would do, but why I use this one is so that we can take a portion of the fabric, bring it up under the next elastic, and create like a little puff. Now you can do this two ways. You can take it so that the satin is showing out like this at the top, or do it with the crepe and folding it down. This way I'm going to bring the elastic now down to the next bump, right underneath here. Take it and stick it down under. Now we've got lots of fabric, and that's what's going to make it stick out a little bit like a puff. And wiggle that into place. Almost in. Got a lot of fabric, and that's going to be like a little roll. Make sure you conceal the ends of the fabric, folding them and overlapping them. But now we've got a little roll at the top. Remove the tape, tidy the ends up by sticking them in, and you won't believe how nice this looks when it's all done. There's the fabric. I'm going to take off the plastic. You can take a bit of satin trim if you want and put around the top of the lampshade. Now, as long as the two fabric colors are close, and now with a little bit of shine on the bottom base, the crystal gone, we have a completely different look. And cut that last piece off. You don't see anything now on the lamp except this little bubble here. Isn't that a completely different look? Make sure that you pull the fabric down so you don't see the elastic band, but there's a different shape for a lamp base again. Let's tighten the top. I think this should have also a new fancier finial, something with a little rounded or pointed top. But again, a piece of fabric can change a lamp base completely. Now I'm just going to talk about something a little bit different, and that's painting a lamp base completely with spray paint. Here is an old lamp I had that I spray painted the entire base ivory. It was a combination of wood and an old brass. I just sprayed the whole thing ivory, which, by the way, needs to be sprayed again. But what I want to show you that really dressed this up is I keep this little cinnamon stick with a bunch of flowers right here, glued in place. Let me just get a little tiny bit of glue to hold it. And this changes this lamp again completely. It was a lamp from, the 70s, I'm sure. But again, it's given it just a little bit more of a country look with a new pink lampshade, and that's something that I've used quite often, is flowers on a lamp base. So maybe you have that kind of lamp base. Now comes the very ugliest lamp base in the whole wide world. This is some that I found at a flea market, which needs a lot of help. It's got to be the worst one. Two ways of doing a lamp base. One is spray painting it, and two is covering it with fabric. A third is you've seen us do decoupage with either fabric or paper. This is a ceramic base. You can do absolutely anything with it. You can glue on pieces of fabric if you happen to like the shape. But this shape reminds me of something like a steel piece of metal or a steel anything. So I like to see it looking a little bit more steel. This one has a crack in the corner. So anything with a crack, I tend to think, should be covered with fabric. But with a particular type of a treatment, like a faux finishing spray with marbleizing or sponge treatment, can really turn this into a much nicer lamp base. We'll need a new cage on the top, and away you go. And of course, this needs to be tightened up and fixed. But what I did was I sprayed the whole thing black first. A black spray paint can do something like this to such an ugly lamp base, and that's just a can of flat black spray paint. It's not the kind of flat black spray paint that you'd use for your barbecue. It's just a craft paint. You can pick it up at most department stores or craft stores. It's just a craft spray paint. Now I'm just going to lightly spritz a little tiny bit of silver over it just to give it a little bit of a pewter look. Sometimes there might be some flaws in how the ceramic was actually molded. For example, the other lamp base that had a crack in it, you might want to specifically put an extra little bit of spritz right there on the crack just to help conceal that a little bit. But flat black paint on any base would help cover up an awful lot of flaws. Give your spray paint a little shake. Anything out of the way that doesn't want to have a spritz of silver on it. But just watch closely now on the base what this does. I like to spray it on a sharp angle so that you don't get inside of all the curves. Spray a little bit, and just a little tiny bit, very far away. Little tiny spots. Some spots have more than the others. And turn it slightly and do it this side. Some of your sprays, if you variate how you're pressing the top, will give you a much different look. Now see that? That looks like it's steel. I think it looks like it's steel. And everything now is very, very ironed with accent, using rebar for decorating. Lots of candle holders are iron and steel. So I think that is a fabulous makeover for a lamp base that now looks like a steel knot compared to, again, I say, the ugliest lamp base in the whole entire world, which is what this was. Look at that. That's a great makeover. Now you need a silver lampshade or kind of a tin lampshade. Maybe you can make one out of aluminum flashing. You can take any old lampshade and just take a piece of aluminum flashing and place over it. A white lamp base, like the one we have. A neat idea to do with a lamp base. Place the lamp base on top and take some negatives and place all over your white lamp base. And that would be a really nice accent to fit this type of lampshade. Talking about scale for a moment, this lampshade you can tell is much too small for this lamp base. You need something a lot wider. So again, be very careful how you choose your lamp shade for your lamp base. Your lamp shade should be bigger than your overall lamp base, but not too big. It's very similar to flower arranging in that your lamp shade should be almost twice the size of your lamp base. If it's a really tall lamp base, so should your lamp shade be very, very tall. If it's a very wide lamp base, then again your lamp shade should be very wide as well. So spray paint is one option to cover up bases. Fabric is another option. Decoupage is always an option. Lots of different things to cover up lamp bases. Very few lamps should be thrown away. You can recycle them and turn them into a whole completely different style. Well, if you have any questions about Creative Corner or comments that you want to send us, you can write us at Creative Corner. That's at Cable Atlantic, P.O. Box 8596, St. John's, Newfoundland, A1B 3P2. So we'd gladly love to hear your comments, or maybe you have some of your own ideas for lamp shades or lamp bases that you want to talk about. But remember, I think this particular lamp base would be just as nice done with decoupage. Now decoupage, if you remember, is cutting little tiny pieces of paper or fabric and gluing it onto the base. The only thing I want to remind you about some bases, for example wood, if they have a strong oil base paint on top of them, and some ceramics do, then you have to do the same type of an oil-based strong coating on the bottom of it. Any particular base that you're not sure about, and if you're wondering if your paint is going to adhere to it, there's a primer for anything that has a gloss. Well, actually, it's a primer for absolutely any base at all. If you're not sure what it is, get a fabric base. That's called a primer for it. It's called an underbody, and it goes for anything. You can put it on anything that's metal, anything that's cardboard, anything at all, and it will be the underbase for anything. It's the perfect primer. And then you can put anything on top of the primer, whether it be a primer that's a latex, a water-based, or a spray paint. So remember, again, wood or ceramic might also need to be scuffed up a little bit with some sandpaper to get your paints to adhere to it. But remember, Absolutely anything can be done as long as you have the right tools and as long as you think far ahead and imagine how it's going to be when it's finished. Did you really think that this could come out steel looking? Now there's lots of different finishes you can do with a little bit more marbleizing. You can use sponges, rags, lots of different painting textures. Paint on freehand some flowers. Cut out some flower shapes from fabrics. Paint on some stripes, absolutely anything. This would be really nice with some stripes too, I think. Or you can do it in a couple of different colors. The outside could be ivory, the inside burgundy, etc. Anything can be done. So I hope this inspires you maybe to send us in some pictures and let us see what you've redone to some lamp shades or maybe redone to some lamp bases. The only thing I say about lamp shades, don't cut into them and make holes because you don't want to see through a lampshade and see the glow of the light bulb. That you don't want to do. Well, I hope you enjoyed this show, and we'll see you next week on Creative Corner.